Goedemiddag, good evening, good afternoon. It's not quite evening yet. Goedemiddag allemaal. Welcome to this Tech Talk at 3 session, a monumental one, geskiedkundige ene, the first Tech Talk after our SGB elections that took place a month or two ago. And welcome to new SGB members joining us today. The discussion is going to be hopefully fruitful, hopefully full of fun and informative. And on stage with me, welcome Prof René Uys. René, baie dankie dat jy saam met ons kuier vanmiddag. We will let you tell us a little bit more about yourself in a short while when we get going with the session and the interview. But thank you for joining us and making the effort and investing in our schools. We still see a few people coming in, and hopefully some of them will join us as the session goes on. We had quite a good interest in the registrations, more than 150 people saying that we've got to talk about leadership in schools. But to kick off, let's just do some welcoming, opening, and housekeeping. For those who don't know me, my name is Riaan van der Bergh. I'm Deputy CEO at FEDSAS, as well as the leader and manager of the Center for Technology, as well as the Center for Finance and Risk Management. And yeah, some of the activities we do is related to the technological advancement in schools, but others may be slightly on the softer side. And if you follow us, our Tech Talk series and our magazine, you will see that we spend a lot of time on leadership. Leierskap verander die traject waarop ons is. En leierskapsontwikkeling is vir ons baie belangrik. So the session will be kind of jointly English and Afrikaans. We don't have the luxury of doing two sessions today, so we'll possibly be more in English for the recording purposes. But any question that you want to ask, please type it in the the question and answer box at the bottom, Q&A box. And to get us started, maybe just get us an indication of who is in the session with us. So I'm going to ask a question and just pop it in the Q&A. What is your role at school? Wat doen jy by die skool? Is jy die hoof? Is jy adjunkhoof? Is jy departementshoof? Are you a learner? Are you a parent, SGB member, RCL, liaison, whatever it is that you do at school? Let's see if you can figure out where the Q&A is, and we'll quickly run through that. There's an anonymous attendee, parent from the SGB, Cat and IT educator, wonderful, deputy principal, departementshoof, thank you. So I don't think we'll necessarily change the planned discussion that we're going to have, but it's good to know who we're talking to. And interesting to see, up until now, we don't have a learner, and we're talking about learner leadership. And maybe that's just a question mark for ourselves at school. I know the learners are busy though, and it's sports and exams and test series. So thanks so much for joining us. You can keep popping those into the Q&A box so that we know who we're talking to this afternoon. Technology is infused in our world. And as an opening, I maybe just want to put the frame right that in the Center for Technology, we've been saying for the past few years, we have to learn as we live. How we live, our living experience, our living tools, our living environment essentially has to be mirrored in our learning environment. And sometimes there's a huge disconnect, and it plays out in various arenas. So it might be the introduction of technology, it might be introduction of values to use the technology, and it might be the change management. So the Center for Technology has a big focus on adopting technology and using it for better learning outcomes, for better management outcomes, for better governance outcomes, and also to be relevant so that our learners fit into the world of work in the future. One of the big issues that we talk about in our magazines is that of leadership and leadership development, but FEDSAS has always been in this space. As far as learner leaders go, the RCL members that represent on the high school governing bodies, they were elected early in the year already, so the new governing body members would have inherited the leaders, the learner leaders on the SGB. And what do we do to develop them? FEDSAS has been working hard on involving the leaders, making sure that the young leaders are fully fledged partners and members of the governing body. And that's what they should be. They're not there for the opening and just to say hi. They represent a constituency, especially in the high schools, whose voice we need to hear. But they're also filling the leadership void going forward. In the nearby future, they might be the leaders that we're waiting for. And I think that's what the discussion is about today. We're talking to Prof René Uys. She has long credentials, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself. She was introduced to me by a retired principal from Lugbron Academy in Ermelo, Duke van Rensburg, a dear friend and colleague. And when he said, I've got to speak to Prof René, I said, well, based on that relationship, let's do that. And I was fascinated by the work that she does and through her community and businesses do. So René, Prof René, welcome to the session today. Thank you so much for joining us. I think I've handled all the Q&A. Please ask questions in between. We also received questions in the registration, and we'll deal with some of those. Some of those we actually preempted, but some of them we'll definitely throw in. So welcome to the stage. Please tell us more about yourself and the work that you and Thinking Fusion Africa. Maybe just tell us Thinking Fusion. It's an interesting name, but what you've been doing, as well as the role that you play in the 180 Academy, which is the member of the Center for Technology. So welcome, and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Riaan. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for allowing me to speak about leadership, which is so close to my heart. Yes, as you've indicated, I wear many hats. The first hat is Director of Thinking Fusion Africa. So the name comes from the fusion of the thinking of the two directors. And in the end, because it was an academic and someone from the world of work at that stage, so that is where Thinking Fusion comes from. And Thinking Fusion focuses on leadership development. So everything Thinking Fusion does is leadership development. We don't do any other work. We don't do management work. We have for the past 20 years focused on leadership development. The title professor comes from the fact that I'm a professor of practice at the Northwest University Business School, and that is an acknowledgement for my work in leadership. I was in my past a professor, so it's just carrying the title forward, but this time one that I really have pleasure in wearing because the leadership work is so close to my heart. And then I have a third hat, and I'm an executive at Moyo, where I am the head of talent solutions. And in that talent solution space, apart from recruitment, we do data training. So that is where the second half, and where hopefully we will have a discussion on that in time, and where it fits into your technology space. And that is how our 180 Academy was born. It is a combination of the data work of Moyo and the leadership work of Thinking Fusion. And we in the 180 Academy then put programs together that suit the client. So you need this in leadership, that in data, perhaps a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. And then we put that together for a group of learners. We've just completed a group of graduates who can't believe what has happened with them over a period of 2 months, where we did leadership programs and data work. So yes, so ideally, I was so enjoyed when you shared that you and your unit also focus on both leadership and technology. I think that the skill and the leadership work must go hand in hand, and that is where we are in the world and where we focus at.
Maybe just to chase a small rabbit here before we get into the meat of the session. Northwest University was in the news recently because they handed or recognized Rassie Erasmus for his work as the Springbok coach. But very interestingly enough, the data world of the Springboks is what caught my eyes during the World Cup. How data made the decision for who the team should be. And after each game, we saw how many tackles, how many meters, how many assists, how many kicks, how many passes. And it's amazing to know that even it sounds like very in a dark room data analytics, data science, and the nerds of the computer world, but how it influences the practicalities of our sports world. So kudos to Northwest for acknowledging Rassie and the winning team, but also we know that he based a lot of his decision making on data. Yeah,
I'd like to touch on two other aspects whilst we're talking about him. One is that we are doing this data analysis with the students of the Cricket Academy of Titans. So also to give them that skill. So you might not become a Springbok player, but you can do the data analytics. But in Rassie's speech, what was so special is that he referred to that one of the reasons they are so successful is psychological safety. And psychological safety is an aspect we focus on in all our leadership programs now, because it is has become such a serious issue since COVID. So all in all, his appointment touched on so many levels for my world. So yes, I was pleased with him receiving that honorary doctorate.
Well, that was unrehearsed and not part of the script, but very serious contribution, and anecdotally very close to a lot of our hearts. To maybe put a complete spin on it, you and I had several discussions, coffee meetings about the work that you do and the reason why we have a session of today. You are known for the work that you do and the development programs, and so there's a product out there, leadership development programs, but Simon Sinek says we must start with why. And when we had discussions and you told me the stories of why you started with this and what made it necessary to invest in young people, why is it necessary to talk about leadership? Isn't it just automatic? And yeah, we vote at school and there's a prefect board and the RCL and we just go on as if it's normal for the last 150 years. Why? And I want you to throw the big bullets out there.
Okay. Well, we just have to look around us to understand that leadership is a serious matter throughout and a void in South Africa, and we really need that. But what happened and why I started focusing on young people and their leadership development is actually quite an upsetting, sad story, really. I did leadership work, or still do leadership work extensively in the mining sector. And whilst working in the mining sector, they asked me to develop a strategy for women in mining. So their charter says 30% of the core employees of a mine should be women. Now that brought along serious problems in the mining industry. And whilst working on that strategy, I then realized how serious the problem of sexual harassment is in the mining sector. Undertaking that research then indicated to us that these people with these poor behaviors in the workplace, of course, come from communities surrounding the mining industry. And in those communities, these young people started looking like the adults. They started behaving like the adults. They had sexual relations too young. They were introduced to alcohol too young. They often didn't attend school, were introduced to drugs, etc. And we then realized just working with the leaders will change the narrative over a too long a period. So we decided if we start at the bottom and involve the young people and develop programs for them, they can then also take it home, share it with their friends, etc., and perhaps get healthy communities. We also work in the agriculture sector, and there the same thing is true, is the communities around the farming environment is not healthy. So we started with the first program as Let's Go, and that was really for the young people to understand who are they, how should they behave, how do you say no, what is my personal brand, how do I set up boundaries, etc. And that seemed to be very successful, and they started taking that message to their parents, sharing with the mothers, because what was upsetting when we worked with these young people is how many of them had mothers that were alcoholics. And that was quite upsetting. So the kickoff was then Let's Go. And if I can move on and say and share more of the outcomes so that you understand why the drive. When we started presenting these programs, we then realized that we are entering schools where there are often many girls pregnant, where there are often relationships between boys where they really abuse the girls. And in the period that we started there, we also found that the availability of drugs was too immense. But in designing these programs, then we said, okay, if we see this in the communities, let's talk to these young people. Let's ask them about their needs. So in Let's Go, we then got focus groups together, and the same, I will talk in a minute about the follow-up program. And when we had these focus groups, we had kids from the wealthy, the affluent schools, the 100% pass rate schools, and we had focus groups with those in the rural schools where the teachers often don't even come to school, and where we thought all these problems would be. But when we spoke to these kids, they had the same dilemmas, even though the circumstances were so different. One of the dilemmas was absent parents.
Yeah.
So the rich kids have absent parents because the parents give money and they go shopping. The absent parents in the poorer communities were parents that were away to perhaps go and earn money or away for other reasons. The kids both had the opportunity for drugs, they both had the opportunity for alcohol, they both had the opportunity for sex, etc., etc. And they all said, but who am I? What is my purpose? What is my brand? What is my personality, etc., etc. And some were so insecure that they said, I can't have a personality, I'm not important enough.
Wow.
And then with those answers, we started with Let's Go. But then when we came into the workplace, where these young people had to go for employment, or to the university where they had to go to study, the universities and the workplace then complained about these young people that they could do nothing with. They said, even though they have a schooling qualification or university qualification, they don't understand the workplace and they are inappropriate in their behaviors.
Sure.
And then we developed the second program, and that program's name is Launchpad. So this program focuses on how do I behave amongst others? How do I deal with people that are different to me? How am I as a follower? How do I communicate in the workplace, etc.? So you can now hear these two programs together, then said, how do I polish this human being to be more whole, to be ready for whatever life brings, be ready to say no, because that seemed to be the biggest issue. And then how are they ready to either study or work so that they are a valuable contributor and not an issue for the workplace. So participants that have been through these two programs, then the workplace said, okay, now I can do more with them. They behave differently and they make different life choices.
Good. I don't want to jump to the solutions too quickly, because I think we've got to pause. And maybe just on the side note, I think there's a pamphlet or brochure of Let's Go and Launchpad already posted in the chat group. And please, audience members, type a question if you want to interrupt us here. I want to just reflect on the brokenness of society, because it seems like there's the two elements. And when I speak to school leaders, I hear the same thing. The kids are a function of society or home. And we've got to work with the kids at school, but they don't come, perfect kids don't become broken when they walk through the school gate. So suddenly it's like we're sitting with the fruit of the tree at home or in society, and let's call it society. And it seems like there's systemic issues, irrespective of like economy. Did I hear you right? The affluent 100% pass rate schools, in the school world, we talk about the quintile system, quintile 1 and quintile 5. The identity crisis, the purpose crisis sounds the same. Am I right?
Yes. And we saw that now in these kids that committed suicide recently. It is because there's no clarity for them. Who am I? Where do I fit in? Where do I belong? So when we started with these programs, we went to some schools, and there we found, very scaringly, please don't ask me the town or the school name, but all the girls in matric were pregnant. Most of them, unfortunately, from the teachers we discovered whilst working there. And
Sure.
then we found in this same community that there was a place where they could go to have sex for 10 or 20 rand. And it's because the school has no sports
Yeah.
fields. So when you get there, you can almost not believe this can be true. Then we decided, okay, we realized there's no money in this environment for this extensive programs that I've just shared with you. But we knew there's more kids that need to hear how to make choices, to understand the consequence of certain choices. And then we developed two other programs. One is called Voice to Men and one Becoming a Woman. Shorter, just one day, intense, working with them on these behaviors we saw, how they poorly treat one another, how they don't understand the role of sex in a relationship, etc., etc. But when you presented this and you asked, what does this environment look like? These kids couldn't read our slides. They were high school pupils that couldn't follow the presentations from the slides that we presented. They couldn't read properly. And we had to change those programs to picture-based programs. So there's more than one problem. There's behavior problems. There's the level of learning problems. There's the engagement with adult problems, because we realized that youngsters that grow up in a very small house environment where they share a bathroom and a bedroom with adults have very different behaviors than those that don't see naked adults and don't see sexual activity. And whilst a very large portion of our country actually, unfortunately, does live in this confined environments, and that also those behaviors, to understand that you can set boundaries, that your body is yours, that you have choices to make. Those we realized were all things that we had to build into the programs if we want healthier young people, and hopefully so we give them all the tools that we use with them, they may reuse, so that they can use it in their families and their communities to have an influence, to tell a story, to share an experience, to try and have a ripple effect and have a greater impact in the really communities that are not well.
But yeah, and that's horrific to hear those stories. A portion of me says, but it doesn't look like that in every situation. But it does seem like every situation has their small pieces of cancer. It might not be the exact same thing as the other context, but your findings show that it doesn't matter the quintile. There's identity, there's wellness, there's lack of leadership, there's lack of purpose, and these things. And your program addresses that. And I want to get to, yeah, I don't want to get trapped in the dismal statistics and findings, but we know that it doesn't look, everywhere in the country doesn't look like it might look at our school, but every person in our school probably doesn't look like we think the average person in our school looks like. And that's in the staff as well as in the class.
Yes, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
We just completed that graduate program that I shared with you. In the graduate program, there was a young lady that came from one of these best schools that looks like we think one should look like, that has been molested since the age of 4 and raped since the age of 13 by her uncle, with parents that have never believed her. And for the first time, she could speak out about it on the program and get whole. And she has now found a husband, and she says he supports her. So you are right. If you look at her, of all the people sitting in front of us, that would have been the one that one would have least expected it to be true with. So how does this mean for leadership? It means teachers need to lead differently and understand differently. Governing body needs to lead and understand differently. But we should also give these young people the strength to stand up, to say no, and to behave differently.
Yeah. And that's where we want to get to. You mentioned the Boys to Men, and that's not the band, and becoming a woman one day programs that you have. I think Alreta will post those in the chat for some information. But there is hope, and there is a program out there, and it's not just for the neighboring school. It's not where we think it goes badly. This is also not just an intervention for where we had a problem, but this is development and growth for where we are now. Every school is looking at finding leaders for next year's RCL. For every school is looking at finding a captain for the hockey, netball, debate, rugby, whatever team it is, to say, man, I'm standing up and saying no, drawing boundaries, living with integrity. Yeah. Maybe let's just get back to leadership, and why would leadership interventions fill a void in the South African context? And yeah, maybe the focus why we're talking today is not just on the learners, but the SGB members and teachers as well. But why start with young people? Why the focus on our youth?
I think, yeah, it's important. I mean, the Boys to Men and Becoming a Woman was really designed to address illnesses, whilst Let's Go and Launchpad is addressed to develop leadership.
Yep.
And I think it is important for young people, firstly, to be confident in who they are. So Let's Go works with that, developing their personal brand, understanding their purpose in life, understanding how they think, how they learn, what their personality type is, what their brain profile is, all that insights so that they can make important choices on what they're going to study, to understand why they study in a certain way, or perhaps don't perform because they are studying in a way that doesn't suit their brain profile the best. But also things that give them behavior skills, boundary skills, etc. Whilst the Launchpad then takes it further in, how do I communicate? How do I listen? How do I interpret body language? But also, how do I act as a follower? Because a leader is most of the times a follower. You are most of the time also following someone. How do you do that? How do you show support for your leader? And all sorts of, how do I work with diversity? How do I work? Because even if somebody looks and sounds like me, their personality is different. Their life story is different. And then there are people that have a different gender, different culture, different all sorts of other things. How do we work and live with diversity and feel comfortable with that? Also with disability. So a full focus is also placed on diversity to give, particularly in South Africa, you the opportunity to live and perform well in a diverse environment where everyone around you is not the same as you. Often you can still find a school environment where most look like you, but the moment you leave that environment, that is not true. So these two programs are for that, to prepare young people to become leaders in their own environment, self-leaders firstly, and then leaders of others. So, and as I said earlier, why young people first? Because they can influence and they are ready for that. We needn't change behavior like we have to do with adults. They are at a point where we can work and prepare leaders for the future.
So we believe in FEDSAS that education is the plan for the country. You know, education is plan A, it's plan B, it's plan C, but we educate, but we're educating the youth, and leaders will change the trajectory. Leaders will look after each other. And I like what you're saying, how to be a follower, because leadership is not limited to the badge that a school dishes out. You know, there's limited badges at a school, but they're not limited leaders. You can be the silent leader, you can be the leader, the follower in the group that's possibly a stronger leader than the person with the badge. And I think we've got to make room for that. So we're not limited by the number of badges, but we must develop to the number of learners and the potential, the constitutional values of ensuring that the potential of all our learners are unlocked. The preamble to the Schools Act, making sure that we unlock the potential of our learners. We're slightly off script, hopefully still on time, but it's critical that we start with the learners. We didn't talk too much about the parents earlier, but it seemed like there's a broken society out there, and if the schools did it right, they used the learners to influence the home. You know, it's like bottom-up training rather than top-down training. But we're looking at two other stakeholders and parties in the school, which would be governing body members, governing body teachers, but the governing body as leaders in the society, governing body members, and then the teachers. A healthy staff room gives a lot of more wellness and health in the school, my belief. But where I see it, where the pressure is less, where the potential is being supported, there is definite higher functioning and better results. Yeah, so you've got leadership programs for the learners, so those 4 that we mentioned, but you also have something, and maybe we can't touch on it for in too much depth, but what do we have for governing body members? Someone that want to develop themselves, and a principal or a HOD that says, but I want to grow as a leader. Is there some self-leadership growth that I can do?
Yes, I have 2 programs that I'd like to recommend. We have others also, much more intense and complex programs, which I understand in the school environment perhaps might be just too challenging. But I would recommend for the principals and the governing body and for teachers, Essential Leadership Insight. It is a 6-day program presented over 3 2-day periods. And it really has the core leadership knowledge that everyone needs to know, that you need to master and integrate into your life. It is a life-changing experience and a very positive experience. Another program that I find in particular teachers are very fond of, and that's the program is called Self-Leadership, because it really addresses getting myself stronger, getting myself less dependent on a leader, but also working on my own wholeness in this challenging world where my batteries gets depleted by everyone wanting from me, and how do I build up myself? Also a 6-day program. They are both accredited programs, so they both get certificates from the Northwest University. Very, very positive, beautifully nice experience. They are both either presented face-to-face or can be presented virtually as well. A very positive experience, and I would recommend that for any governing body and any teacher to select either of the 2 programs. It has serious impact and looks after the person. It gives you almost that woema to go ahead again and face the challenges.
So it sounds fairly academical, and I don't want to you know, dissect it into put it into a little box. A program might sound like, I need time off, it's going to cost money, but the program's result is the impact. And if we just backpedal slightly, we saw the problem. There's a societal problem, there's systemic problems. Kids from all diversities, quintile 1, quintile 5, economic, you know, low end, high economic, and there's absence of leadership. There's broken systemic societal issues. And that's sad, and we've got to address that. And hopefully something like this and many other programs would look at that. But we've got to look at that. But sadly, we stuck in the curriculum. We've got to do math, science, LO, and all these things, and time gets dropped. How do teachers and learners have time for this very important thing? Where do you put the time slots in? How do they participate? Is there some online? Is there some weekend? Is there some holiday? How do we make it possible? All
of that is possible. The Let's Go and Launchpad programs are 4 days each, so that can easily fit into a school holiday period. It is so rewarding, and they enjoy it so much that they forget they are on training. So those programs have been designed for the young person. It's vibrant in colors, uses lovely music, has nice activities from balloons to crayons to whatever. So that is it speaks to them, tough content, but presented for young people. The 2 6-day programs, because it's only 2 days at a time, it can be done over weekend, it can be done in a holiday period. It can be done after school, and then they perhaps need a day or two extra. So we are quite flexible. We want to do it. We know it makes a difference, so we will accommodate. But it is true. If you want to develop, if you want to change, you have to put in effort. It doesn't come by sitting in your armchair.
Okay, I've already got a first question, and I thought that was going to be one of the first questions. The question is not how much does it cost, it's just implied discount for teachers. The question is just discount for teachers. So there's a pricing structure behind it. And yes, obviously the teaching fraternity is already at the place. We can't pay corporate rates like business do. We're not Anglo-American BHP Bulletin. They were in the news this morning, so maybe. But we're not the big corporates with the deep pockets. And yes, these are important things, and we've got to go back and budget. But the budget is either individual budgets, the teacher or the learner doing it themselves, or the school budgeting. Can you just quickly frame? I know it's not the same for every school and for every program, but where's the starting point? Is this reachable for a school budget or for a teacher or a learner to do these courses?
Yeah, I believe so, yes. And I don't want to give numbers now, because if there's larger numbers that enroll, of course, we will give more discount. But if we look at Boys to Men and Becoming a Woman, it is a few R100 for that day. It is for Let's Go and Launchpad. It is clustered in groups of 30 students. We work a price for that, and then for each student afterwards a price. And also there, if it is school money or CSI money, we have a different budget than when Anglo pays for it themselves. And then I didn't think of, yes, specials for teachers. Again, I'm also going to give for Essential Leadership Insight and Self-Leadership Program, we will give special fees for teachers. I think this is a very important environment. We are currently doing extensive work in the agriculture sector. And to be able, and because everyone knows that is important, we have sponsors for that. So Riaan, perhaps that is also not a bad idea, that we try and see if people don't want to sponsor groups of teachers or contribute some of it. And I know even if some of the large farmers that we've worked with have sponsored the teachers of their own school in their own environment. So okay. We will find a way. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got limited time left. And thank you for all staying in the session. If there's some more questions, please pop them in the Q&A. You've trained about in excess of 8,000 leaders attending these courses. There are a lot of programs out there, and yours has a special nuance to it. What differentiates your program? Why should we contact you? And then the next question is how do we contact you? And I think Alrieta has some contact details there for us. But what differentiates your program from
our others programs overall, firstly, is beautifully packaged. Beauty is a value of mine, and I think we through that also say how important and that we respect you. We have had participants, particularly as schoolgoers, that hug their file and say it's the most beautiful thing that I have. So that is one. Secondly, we only use science. We don't use the fad of any of the day. So unless it's not proven by science, we don't include it in a program. Also, particularly if you work with young people, it's dangerous if you start tampering and you don't know. It is science-based. So it is science-based, and it gets reviewed annually. So there's no old stuff in our programs. We work with assessments throughout, so that you can understand where you are versus where one should be and what is the route going there. And you are allowed to keep that and reuse that to see if you're growing or falling back. We include reading. We include all the slides that we use, so you receive a fully completed file. We use activities to enhance learning and ensure that it stays there. And also the fact that there's a period between sessions is that you can apply. So that we don't bombard you with too much information and then you can't go and apply it and none of your behavior changes.
Yeah.
So there's just so much. I think 20 years experience, and as you said, more than 8,000 participants. I think we know about leadership by now. And they can contact me personally because I'm for special prices. Contact me, don't contact anyone else. But contact me, I'll send brochures, I will talk, I will visit the school, whatever is required.
Okay, I'm going to ask Alveta to quickly flight the slide if it's available, so that we can get your contact details on the screen and you can take a screenshot. We've got a quick question here: the languages that are available. Thank you for that question. Watter tale is dit magtig, of is ons in Engels? Is it English material?
All the programs are in English only, except for Let's Go, who also has an Afrikaans version, Latvai, because that is the lower level and where they battle still with the translation. Many of our facilitators are Afrikaans speakers, so they can speak in Afrikaans, and then we have many facilitators that can speak a variety of the other languages in South Africa. So with Boys to Men and Becoming a Woman, we often needed translators in the room because despite them being in the English schooling system, they couldn't speak English or understand it well enough. So yes, we can address most things, but the programs are written and the hard copy material will be in English, apart from Let's Go that has a Latvai alternative. Don't you think Latvai is nice?
Dit is 'n mooi naam, Latvai. Julle, ons moet Latvai. We're coming to the end of our session, but I just quickly wanted to touch on the 180 Academy. We will cover some of that detail in our magazine, and I think we referred to it in the previous tech magazine as well. The data science. You said you work with science as a basis of the programs, but the data science, maybe just give us a teaser of what that is for a next, it's a skill that kids can get, learners can get, so that they are effectively immediately employable.
Yes.
Just
so you spoke about that data for sport. That is a very big career opportunity now available. So we work with Power BI, we work with Excel, we work with SQL, we work with data storytelling. And we have it on the level for the adult corporate people that attend our programs, but also for learners. So we know they have not applied it yet. They've not been there yet. So the examples and the application is slightly different. So we work in that full spectrum of 6 or so programs. We also have Tableau, but I think that is a bit advanced now.
Maybe as a last question to the audience, thank you for sticking around, those that are still around. Maybe just an indication by means of a yes in the Q&A box. Would you or someone at your school be interested in the data science world, the technological understanding of data, so that we know that we plan a next, there's a thumbs up reaction there. But yes, from where I'm sitting, I'm a big sports lover and enjoy sports, but follow the statistics from Formula One to American football. It's statistically driven. So yeah, there's a lot of indications. There's a possible need for that, and we'll give some information, maybe preempted in the next magazine and not wait for the following one. But thank you for that. René,
thumbs up if they want to give it. Was this worthwhile?
Oh yeah,
was leadership one worthwhile?
Some thank yous already. There's a lot of thank you. Yeah, we scratched the surface, but we talked about the serious issue. There is a problem, and sometimes it's easier to just put the head in the sand and be the ostrich. The fact that there's a problem means that we've got a challenge and we need to face that head on. And thank you for making programs available. Every school does not have to invent the wheel or reinvent the wheel. We've got partners in the center like Thinking Fusion that can help us out there. Your contact details were flighted. If anyone, well, we'll send the details again. But thank you for joining us. Maybe a last comment from your side before we say goodbye to our audience. I'll just check the Q&A box quickly.
Yes. I hope to hear from the audience. I know that our programs make a difference, and we will gladly come make a difference in your environment. And thank you for listening today.
Thank you. Everybody, we're not going to flight the FEDSAS details. You can reach me at riaan@fedsas.org.za for any queries, questions, and comments about any activities in the FEDSAS Center for Technology or Center for Finance and Risk Management. We're here to serve our community. I know it's some new SGB members, and you might not be aware of all our activities. Please go and read some more about it. Find our magazine on our website and in our social media, and then look out for some future sessions about this. But thank you so much for joining us. Alreta is posting the most recent versions, editions of the magazine in the chat room. And yeah, please reach out to us, and René is available. And she said it's on record now. She'll make plans for teachers. So let's see if we can make a difference and have an impact there. Thank you for the work that you're doing, for squeezing us in an afternoon full of busy work, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.
Tot ziens allemaal.